Yep, it's me, Douglas, back yet again. In this tutorial, I'm going to be taking a look at this area dealing with rotation pivot points and their different settings. In the past, I haven't really ever used these. It's just recently that I have started to realize how they can be used in animating titles. Before I show the text, notice that by default, the interactors for text appear with the X, Y, and Z axis all centered on the screen. When working in 2D space, as I do for most text-only projects, the Pivot Z setting has little or no visual effect on Rotate Z, as it always rotates around the point of intersection between the X and Y axis. So I will be looking closer at the Pivot X and Pivot Y settings, and leave Pivot Z at the default setting of Center. Now I'll switch on the text. It's centered on screen with all 3 rotation pivot points at their default settings. Changing the value of tumble X does this. Changing the value of spin Y does this. And rotate Z does this. The rotate pivot can be set to either lock to position or independent positions. I'll overlay this rectangle on screen to show the border of the text box. Pivot X is centered by default. It can also be set to left or right, and back to the center again. Y is also centered by default, and it can be set to top, center, or bottom. By using different combinations of X and Y, 9 different points can be individually selected. Let's start with left, top. Then you have center top, right, center, 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 and left center. Finally, bottom. This is left bottom, center bottom, and right bottom. If we leave the setting at right bottom, you'll now see that, for example, tumble X looks like this. And spin Y looks like this. Rotate looks like this. You should notice that there is some padding between the actual text box and the text. For example, with X set as left and Y set as top, you can see there's quite a large gap in the vertical position and a smaller gap in the horizontal position. If you wanted to have this exactly aligning to the top left corner of the D in my name, you would switch to independent. Then you might think you just drag the yellow rectangle to the correct position, but if you try and do that, you'll notice that the text moves with it. To move this independently, you have to work with the values for pivot X and pivot Y. You can drag pivot Y so that you get close to the top of the D, and pivot X so you get quite close there. And then just position your cursor over the number for pivot X and use the scroll wheel to fine adjust. Move down to pivot Y and fine adjust with the scroll wheel. A little more on X here. This way of setting the independent position of the interactor will be used in the next tutorial. Now, it's up to you to use your imagination and play around with these possibilities. See what new text effects you can come up with. When I was crawling around here, I came up with this idea using pivot points. And that's all for this one. Bye for now.